And what we have now is a clear picture of who Justin Trudeau truly is. And it's not who he promised he would be. He promised he would be accountable and ethical. Instead, time and time again, he has used the power of his office to enrich himself, reward his friends, and punish his critics. As the Ethics Commissioner notes in his report, quote, "The authority of the Prime Minister and his office was used to circumvent, undermine, and ultimately discredit Jody Wilson-Raybould." He promised he would be open and honest. But let's remember, on the day that this story first broke, Justin Trudeau denied it completely. He said that the story was false. He then said that he never pressured Jody Wilson-Raybould. We now know that is false. He also said that she never came to him with her concerns. Again, we now know that was false. And he said that he would be happy to work and cooperate with the Ethics Commissioner, and now we know that is false as well. He promised he would be different. Instead, we now know beyond a shadow of a doubt that Justin Trudeau is not as advertised. He has stated so many falsehoods that no one can believe anything he says. Now, Trudeau may never face a court of law for his role in this scandal, but he will have to face the Canadian people over the next few weeks. And on the eve of this election, the choice for Canadians has never been more clear. Between a Prime Minister who abuses his power, bends the law for his friends, attempts to silence his critics, and destroys their reputation, and a Conservative government led by a Prime Minister who will uphold the rule of law, respect our democratic institutions, and help all Canadians get ahead. Justin Trudeau est coupable une fois de plus. Avant cette élection, Trudeau était déjà le seul et unique Premier ministre de l'histoire canadienne reconnu coupable d'infraction aux lois sur l'éthique. Il vient de recommencer. Plus tôt aujourd'hui, et pour la deuxième fois en seulement 4 ans, le commissaire à l'éthique a reconnu Trudeau coupable d'avoir enfreint la loi sur les conflits d'intérêts en raison de son rôle dans le scandale de corruption SNC-Lavalin. Sa première infraction, pour avoir accepté des vacances payées sur une île luxueuse par quelqu'un qui fait de lobbying auprès de son gouvernement, était choquant. Cette deuxième est impardonnable. Nous voyons maintenant qui est vraiment ce Premier ministre, et ce n'est pas ce qu'il avait promis d'être. Il avait promis d'être responsable et éthique, mais encore et encore, il a utilisé le pouvoir de son bureau pour s'enrichir, récompenser ses partisans et punir ses critiques. Comme l'indique le commissaire à l'éthique dans son rapport, et je cite, « Le pouvoir du Premier ministre et de son bureau a servi à contourner, miner et finalement discréditer, fin de citation, Jody Wilson-Raybould. Il avait promis d'être ouvert et honnête. Mais le jour où ce scandale a éclaté dans le Globe and Mail, il a dit que c'était faux. Et il a passé 2 mois à dire les choses qui n'étaient pas vraies, de façon répétée et flagrante aux Canadiens et Canadiennes, en disant qu'il n'avait pas fait pression sur Mme Wilson-Raybould. Il avait promis qu'il serait différent. Mais nous savons maintenant, sans l'ombre d'un doute, que Justin Trudeau n'est pas celui qu'il prétend d'être. Trudeau ne va peut-être jamais faire face à un tribunal pour son rôle dans ce scandale, mais il va faire face à la population canadienne au cours des prochaines semaines. Et à la veille de cette élection, le choix devant les Canadiens et les Canadiennes n'a jamais été plus clair. Entre un Premier ministre qui abuse de son pouvoir, contourne la loi pour ses amis et détruit ses critiques, et un Premier ministre qui va respecter la primauté du droit, respecter nos institutions démocratiques et aider tous les Canadiens et Canadiennes à améliorer leur quotidien. Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much. Happy to take some questions now.
Mr. Scheer, do you think that the Ethics Commissioner's findings would be enough to potentially justify an obstruction of justice investigation?
I certainly believe that there is enough evidence here to warrant an RCMP investigation. Justin Trudeau has attempted to distract this scandal from Canadians. He has used the power of his office to shut down multiple parliamentary investigations. We now know from the Ethics Commissioner's report that there were several key witnesses who were unable to testify to the Ethics Commissioner because Justin Trudeau blocked that from happening. So I certainly do believe that there is enough here to warrant a further investigation by the RCMP.
I just want to ask, there was a finding here that the lack of, action to waive cabinet confidences impeded the investigation by the Ethics Commissioner. What do you call on the PCO and the government to do to resolve that situation?
Well, we called from the very beginning for Justin Trudeau to waive to grant a full waiver of confidentiality. Remember, he tried to convince people that he had lifted the veil on this by having a very selective waiver, only allowing Jody Wilson-Raybould and others to talk about a very narrow part of this scandal. We now know today that there were other witnesses who had relevant information who were prevented from speaking because Trudeau refused to grant that full and complete waiver. So I would renew my call today for that to happen. If Justin Trudeau believes that he did nothing wrong, if he believes that he has nothing to hide, he should let the light of day shine upon this entire scandal.
Presuming that Justin Trudeau, earlier this week, Trudeau said that he's committed to releasing the report by Anne McClellan once this report was out, presuming that's going to happen. Given Dion's conclusion, how much credence should Canadians give that second report from the former Liberal Cabinet Minister?
Well, I was never prepared to give that report any credence. Justin Trudeau asked a former Liberal from a government that was responsible for the sponsorship scandal to investigate his handling of the SNC-Lavalin scandal. So I don't believe that Canadians are interested in the findings of Liberals who investigate other Liberals. This report by an independent officer of Parliament carries much more weight, and so that's I made my statements today drawing on the conclusions from this investigation by this officer of Parliament.
Earlier this year, you called for Justin Trudeau to resign. Do you still think that's true?
Well, at this point, Justin Trudeau needs to be defeated. The Canadians will have that opportunity on October 21st.
Why did you change your position, though?
Well, he clearly put his own partisan interests ahead of the democratic institutions that have served this country so well for over 150 years. He made the decision to stay in office. Now the decision is in the hands of Canadians on October 21st, and I believe that Canadians will make the right choice to get rid of a scandal-plagued Prime Minister who uses the power of his office to silence his critics and reward his friends, and a Conservative government led by a Prime Minister who will uphold the rule of law and respect our democratic institutions.
If a Prime Minister is found to be in violation of something like this, what do you think is the correct response?
Well, at this point in our parliamentary cycle, the correct response is for Canadians to vote out a corrupt Liberal government led by a Prime Minister who still cannot accept responsibility for his actions. Canadians will have that opportunity on October 21st, and I'm certainly excited about the prospect of putting forward our plan to restore integrity to Canada's government and to make sure that we are a government that's working for all Canadians. Justin Trudeau is using his office to help a very select group of his very rich and powerful friends. That's not who the government of Canada should be working for. And a Conservative government will help all Canadians get ahead.
What do you think is the correct response from the Prime Minister, though?
Well, he should begin by accepting responsibility. He still has failed to do that. But again, he refused to step down when these findings were first put forward to Parliament, when we had sworn testimony at the Justice Committee by Jody Wilson-Raybould that proved that what Justin Trudeau said was false and that he knew it was false. And he refused to take responsibility for his actions then. I don't expect him to do that today, but Canadians can hold him responsible on October 21st.
So in a situation like this, you would feel that stepping down would be the correct thing for a Prime Minister to do?
I think any time a Prime Minister is found guilty of breaking these types of rules, that they need to take responsibility. I made the call months ago when it was clear that Justin Trudeau told things to Canadians that were clearly not true when he was using the power of his office to shut down independent investigations. I made the call on him to step down then, to do the right thing, because he had lost the moral authority to govern. This report proves that beyond a shadow of a doubt. I don't expect him to do the right thing, but I know that Canadians have the opportunity to hold him responsible on October 21st.
You went as far as to say today that you believe that he's used his office to, personally enrich himself. I didn't see anything to that effect in this report. Can you just explain how you came to make those allegations?
Well, first of all, obviously when he accepted the illegal gift, that was a personal benefit to him. This is in his conversations with Jody Wilson-Raybould, he talks about his own seat being at risk, putting his own personal ambitions and his own personal interests ahead of the independence of our rule of law. And again, the focus there is being that he has interfered in a criminal investigation to further his own partisan interests, his own personal interests in his capacity, and of course the other accepting of illegal gifts prior to this report certainly show that he has a pattern of breaking these types of laws.
You're saying that if you become Prime Minister, you'll restore integrity to the office. If a member of your caucus were to break ethics commissioner rules, what would your course of action be? Would they be expelled from caucus if they were found guilty?
Obviously, we're going to hold ourselves to a very high account when it comes to integrity and ethics. I expect all members of my team to follow those rules, and I can assure you that neither myself nor anyone in our government will use the power of their office to interfere in independent prosecutorial decisions. This is what this whole question is about. We have a company that's facing serious corruption charges for defrauding some of the world's poorest people. And when they are being held accountable in Canadian courts, they lean on Justin Trudeau and their friends in the Prime Minister's office to interfere, to get a special deal. That's to get the trial stopped. That is an unforgivable assault on the independence of our rule of law and the independence of our justice system. And that is why Justin Trudeau needs to be held accountable, and I'm confident that Canadians will do exactly that.
But what would happen to conservative MPs if they were to break ethics rules and talk along down Justin Trudeau there, but not what an Andrew Scheer done?
Look,
Ethics rules.
well, obviously, look, this is a Liberal Party problem. This is a Liberal government, a Liberal Party that has never in its history been able to tell the difference between when the Liberal Party of Canada stops and the government of Canada that's meant to govern for all Canadians starts. That is what we're talking about here. Of course, in the future Parliament, under Conservative government, all members of Parliament will be expected to live up to the very highest standards of ethics and accountability, and I will certainly ensure that that happens.
Given the fact that Canadians go to the polls in October, do you believe that this matter needs to be investigated any further?
So absolutely, I just asked a question on whether or not the RCMP should look into that. I do believe that that is appropriate. We called on that to happen at the time that these allegations were first brought up. We'll be looking at what our options are in the coming days, and we'll have more to say on that in the near future.
Mr. Scheer, do you think that Canadians are invested enough in this issue for this to be a key point of the fall federal election?
I do. I do believe that Canadians care about their justice system. I do believe that Canadians care when they see people in powerful offices abusing that power to further their own narrow self-interests and to undermine one of the pillars of our democratic institutions. Canadians understand that we have to be very vigilant against those who want to abuse the power of their office and engage in this type of corrupt behavior, and I do believe that this will be top of mind for Canadian voters this election.
What more do Canadians need to learn about this matter if you still believe it needs to be investigated?
Well, we need to know the full details. Jody Wilson-Raybould has already said multiple times that there's more that she would like to say, but can't because that full waiver was not granted. We need to know what she would add to this. We know that there were multiple people who the Ethics Commissioner attempted to contact, and they were prevented from testifying. We need to know what they would say. The fact that Justin Trudeau is going to such great lengths to cover up, to block investigations, to cancel inquiries into this matter tells me and tells all Canadians that there is more to this story that they need to know.
Mr. Scheer, if you win the election, will you separate the Attorney General role from the Justice Minister?
This is not a problem of which other roles Jody Wilson-Raybould had. In order to prevent this from happening in the future, we need to replace this Prime Minister. Justin Trudeau bullied the Attorney General. It doesn't matter what other titles the Attorney General had. He was speaking to Jody Wilson-Raybould in her capacity as the Attorney General because she had the power to intervene in this criminal prosecution. That is the essence of this problem. And Justin Trudeau may try to say later on today or in the days that come that this was the result of some kind of structural problem in the cabinet, in the Prime Minister's office. That is completely false. The structural problem was that Justin Trudeau attempted to interfere in a criminal prosecution. That would have happened no matter what type of dynamic existed with what other roles the Attorney General had. So again, the focus here is the way that Justin Trudeau bullied, attempted to interfere, and then denied so blatantly, saying things that were so blatantly untrue to Canadians for weeks and months at a time. And knowing that the truth would eventually come out, it's so disappointing to see a Prime Minister desperately attempt to cling to power by saying so many falsehoods. We just can't believe anything this guy says anymore.
So tell us, what are your thoughts on the report from the Ethics Commission?
Well, this is a bombshell report. It's unprecedented that the Ethics Commissioner now has found two contraventions of the conflict of interest. Two contraventions. And this one specifically, the deep concern is that Mr. Trudeau, the Prime Minister, is working to benefit the interest of a multi-millionaire corporation and was working to benefit his own self-interest to get re-elected. This is just unacceptable. It is outrageous that our Prime Minister, the Prime Minister of Canada, would be doing such a thing. And it's also deeply concerning because this is not the first time. There was a previous violation of the Conflict of Interest Act. And really, the deeper problem here is that we're seeing that governments in Ottawa, whether it's Liberal, like the current one, or it's Conservative, are working to make it easier for multimillionaires and help their powerful friends, and making it harder for everyday people who need help. And that's deeply concerning.
What repercussions do you think should be out of this ruling?
Mr. Trudeau cannot be the Prime Minister of Canada, and I'm hoping people in the election coming up make that decision. Realize that if we want a government that works for people, not for the wealthiest, the most powerful, the richest corporations, that works for people, then there's a choice to vote for a new Democratic government. There's a choice to vote for new Democratic MPs who will put people at the heart of everything we do. We know that Conservatives and Liberals both have consistently chosen to help out their powerful friends. We know that Conservatives have the Duffy scandal. They help out their powerful friends. They help out those at the very, very top instead of helping out people. And our focus is very different. Sorry? Well, the question is whether he's leading the party or not. This is the same Liberal Party, a Liberal Party that for decades has been involved in this type of scandalous behavior. We got the sponsorship scandal in the past. There's an ongoing kind of arrogance that comes with the two status quo parties. Both parties seem to believe that there's their job to make it easier for the powerful, the wealthy, not to make it easier for people. And whether we have Mr. Trudeau leading or not, it's the same party. And that just makes it even more egregious. The fact, it makes it even more troubling. The fact that there's already something that was done wrong, and then on top of that, when the Ethics Commissioner was trying to investigate it, he was not willing to participate. We expect, I think Canadians expect, that all levels of government should participate when there's an investigation going on. And that's why we called for this investigation, and that's why we also called for a public inquiry. We should see governments that are transparent and willing to work with anyone that's investigating their behavior. The fact that Mr. Trudeau and the Liberal government weren't participating fully or trying to put up barriers, again, begs the question, what other interest groups are they working for? What other industries have they made promises to? Are they going to actually bring in pharmacare, or are they beholden to the pharmaceutical industry? Are they actually going to tackle the problems that's facing climate crisis, or are they beholden to the oil and gas industry, much like the Conservatives are? We're deeply concerned about what this says about the two status quo parties. Donc, ce qu'on a vu aujourd'hui, c'est vraiment un rapport incendiaire. C'est clair que le Premier ministre a fait de pression sur le procureur général, Mme Wilson-Raybould. C'était inapproprié. En fait, ce qu'on a vu, c'est le gouvernement libéral et M. Trudeau veut travailler pour les plus riches au lieu de travailler pour les gens. Ils veulent faire la vie plus facile pour les multimillionnaires Au lieu de faire, et ils font la vie plus difficile pour monsieur, madame, tout le monde. Donc ça, c'est un grand problème. Mais en fait, c'est exactement ce qu'on a vu avec le gouvernement conservateur aussi. Les deux gouvernements conservateurs et libéraux travaillent pour faire facile la vie des multimillionnaires et faire plus difficile la vie des gens. I think the public is certainly going to make a decision about how they feel on this, and they should in the upcoming election. We're proposing a solution, though. What we can do to make sure that no government is in this position in the future is to assure that as soon as any corporation is facing a criminal charge, that they are no longer allowed to lobby with the government. That would be a clear rule, and that's an engagement, that's a commitment that I put in my vision document, that if a corporation is faced with a criminal charge, they're no longer allowed to lobby and meet with the government in that manner. That's just one step we can take, but really, when it comes to this matter, whether we have the Conservatives or Liberals in power, both of them seem to have this track record where they don't get that their job is to work for people, not for the people at the very top. And they're not working for the benefits of everyday families, they're working to make it easier for the multimillionaires, and that's really what I think is at the heart of this matter. Oh, that's exactly it. How do we know he's not going to do this again? How can he be trusted? Is the question I hope Canadians ask themselves when they're voting on October 21st. How can we believe Mr. Trudeau if he makes any commitment on pharmacare? We believe in pharmacare for all. We're committed to that. But if Mr. Trudeau makes that commitment, how can we believe him? How can we believe he's not going to make a decision that benefits the pharmaceutical industry? If he makes a decision or a commitment on the environment, how do we know he's not going to cave into the demands of the fossil fuel sector? We know right now, we've got proof, we've got evidence that he caved to the demands of SNC-Lavalin, to a powerful corporation, to change the laws to effectively get them off the hook. And how do we know he's not going to do that again? We don't. And that's why I'm asking Canadians to make that consideration when they choose their next elected officials. I think that it's best for people to make a decision that is in their best interest and not one that continues the status quo, which is favoring those at the very top.